Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Okay, happy Tuesday everybody. First up, we need to talk about yet another top-level meeting which was held yesterday, Monday, in Beijing, discussing the economy. Despite yesterday being a national holiday in China, Premier Li Keqiang and all 4 vice premiers attended the, quote, special meeting on stabilizing the economy, end quote. The attendance of all vice premiers is not unprecedented, but it is certainly notable. 2 working groups, which had been sent to 16 provincial-level regions by the State Council last month, we covered this at the time, gave reports on their findings during this meeting and discussed how to, quote, resolve difficulties in policy implementation, end quote, for the economy at the local level. Premier Li expressed that efforts should be made to speed up the construction of key projects and increase the quota of the policy-backed and development-oriented financial instruments based on local needs. State media writes that China will continue to roll out more phased policies to expand consumption and investment, and that the Premier urged local governments and relevant departments to come up with concrete measures. Quote, it sounds like more supportive measures are coming, including more infrastructure construction and more relaxation of housing purchase restrictions on a city-by-city basis. There was a rumor going Friday that policymakers are planning to remove all property purchase restrictions in non-Tier 1 cities. If that rumor turns out to be true, it would be another sign of how desperate they are getting about the real estate market. End quote. More on the housing market in a moment, but next up, another US move in the ongoing US-China technology competition. UK-based Reuters reports that, according to Washington-based sources, the US Commerce Department intends to publish new regulations based on restrictions communicated in letters earlier this year to 3 US companies, KLA Corp, Lam Research Corp, and Applied Materials Inc., forbidding them from exporting chip-making equipment to Chinese factories that produce advanced semiconductors with sub-14 nanometer processors. Quote, the rules would also codify restrictions in Commerce Department letters sent to NVIDIA Corp and Advanced Micro Devices last month, instructing them to halt shipments of several artificial intelligence computing chips to China. Some of the sources said that the regulations would likely include additional actions against China. The restrictions could also be changed and the rules published later than expected. End quote. And our last update for the economy before moving on to the other stories, we are starting to see more local governments follow Henan's Zhengzhou's lead from last week and directly get involved in local housing construction in order to complete apartments and prevent the spread of mortgage boycotts. Chinese financial media outlet Sina Caijin writes today that another northern provincial capital, Taiyuan of Shanxi, not to be confused with Shanxi, is pushing property developers in the city to resume construction of 56 stalled projects, employing similar carrots and mostly sticks as Zhengzhou did last week. The outlet quoted a local industry insider as expressing, quote, at present, many real estate firms face liquidity issues. The demand to resume construction, especially those that haven't even broken ground, is a huge challenge, end quote. And yet another northern provincial capital, Jinan of Shandong province, according to Chinese financial media outlet Yicai, quote, intends to buy 3,000 rental homes through an instrument platform in an unusual move aimed at perking up the local real estate market, end quote. This is very much to be continued. Next up, Politburo Standing Committee member and officially China's number 3 leader, Li Zhanshu, has concluded his 4-day trip to Russia, where he met with Russian leader Vladimir Putin, as well as members of the Russian Duma. Chinese state media writes that when meeting with Putin, Li expressed that, quote, under the strategic guidance and personal efforts of President Xi and President Putin, The China-Russia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership of Coordination for a New Era has maintained a strong momentum of development, end quote. He went on to say that, quote, both China and Russia are at a critical historical stage of development and revitalization, enjoying great potential and broad prospects for cooperation, end quote, and that China is willing to continue to work with Russia to firmly support each other on issues concerning each other's core interests and major concerns. Interestingly, the Duma released a statement which included quotes attributed to Li about the Ukraine war, which are not found in official Chinese readouts or state media commentary. Either the quotes are inaccurate, or they are, but the Chinese don't want to publish them. In the Duma statement, Li is said to have expressed, quote, we fully understand the necessity of all the measures taken by Russia aimed at protecting its key interests, and we are providing our assistance, end quote. And, more bluntly, quote, on the Ukrainian issue, we see how they have put Russia in an impossible situation. Russia made an important choice and responded firmly, end quote. We should keep in mind that General Secretary Xi Jinping may be meeting with Putin in a few days. If the meeting goes ahead, we will certainly be watching it very closely. Hey guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit the like button. And for anyone who wants to go the extra mile and help me keep China Update sustainable, help me continue making these episodes for you guys every day, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much everybody for the ongoing support. Okay, last up, let's conclude today's video with updates regarding the lockdown situation in China. We remember from last week that this current national outbreak is the worst in months, with dozens of cities in varying degrees of lockdown and national travel restrictions being rolled out over the weekend. With so much pressure on local governments to implement zero COVID, we are seeing poorly planned and managed lockdowns enforced in several regions. Over the weekend, the lockdowns in parts of the western region of Xinjiang received particular attention and criticism online. At a Friday press conference, the deputy governor of the so-called Ili Kazakh Autonomous Prefecture in Xinjiang was forced to apologize for shortages of medical and food supplies in some residential communities, which have been under lockdown for well over a month. Footage of emotional residents explaining that they have few resources and little food circulated on the Chinese internet over the weekend, sparking angry criticism towards local authorities from some netizens. And with so many cities under lockdown, this sort of anger is spreading. One resident said that his building was only receiving low-quality food every 5 days. US-based China Digital Times writes that, quote, on WeChat, censors struck down essays describing the harrowing chaos of the lockdown, expectant mothers denied essential medical care, feverish children barred from hospitals, an elderly man suffering a cerebral hemorrhage turned away from the ICU, disabled adults left unattended, and students' educations interrupted, end quote. Meanwhile, we also need to keep our eye on Beijing. The capital has discovered a fresh cluster of community cases in a few universities. On Sunday, a municipal government spokesperson said that the cases originated with students returning to Beijing from other provinces. The sensitive capital is tightening restrictions, now requiring employees to show negative COVID tests taken within the previous 48 hours to return to work this week. And finally, unsurprisingly, trips during the recent 3-day Mid-Autumn Festival were down substantially this year. According to state-run CCTV, over the 3 days, September 10th through 12th, trips by road were down 37% this year, trips by ship were down 15% this year, and trips by air collapsed 60% versus last year. We are still waiting on the data for train trips, but we should expect these to be dramatically down too. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.